Have you ever wondered what lies beyond the veil of death, not as a matter of belief, but as a matter of direct experience? What if one of the greatest minds in modern psychology, a man revered for his rationality and deep exploration of the unconscious, encountered something so profound after dying clinically that he kept it hidden for nearly a lifetime? Today, we step into a story that few have heard, a story that calls not for mere curiosity, but for the courageous heart of a seeker. This is a hidden letter of Carl Gustav Jung, a message about life, death, the soul, and what might await us beyond. In 1944, during the turmoil of the Second World War, Carl Jung suffered a massive heart attack that brought him to the edge of death. Clinically, his heart had stopped for several minutes. His body lay still, but his consciousness, as he later revealed in a private letter, did not vanish. It expanded. In that liminal state, freed from the confines of the body, Jung found himself floating high above the earth, not in some abstract metaphor, but in an experience more vivid, more real than anything he had ever known. He saw our planet not as a familiar home, but as a radiant blue jewel, suspended in the vast darkness of space, an image that forever changed the way he understood existence. Jung described being drawn into a place beyond time, a temple not made of stone or constructed by words, but composed entirely of living light. Inside this temple, everything he had thought was consciousness was stripped away. What remained was not memory, not identity, but pure essence, the indestructible core of the self. There were no angels, no familiar religious figures. Yet there was a presence of being communicating directly, not with language, but with an immediate and overwhelming understanding. From a personal perspective, what moves me most about this part of Jung's vision is its simplicity and profundity. It was not dressed in doctrine or mythology. It was direct. It teaches us something critical, that what we truly are is not the accumulation of knowledge, titles, or memories. It is something deeper, something we barely touch in our ordinary lives. But Jung's journey didn't end there. He was shown something even more unsettling, a glimpse not only of the soul's reality, but of humanity's future. He saw a time when the boundary between life and death would thin, a future when human beings would begin to perceive more not through technological advancement alone, but through a shift in consciousness itself. This awakening, he wrote, would bring both enlightenment and chaos. He described it as the space between worlds, a realm where the divisions between matter and spirit, life and death, would grow porous. In this vision, he saw a world bathed entirely in light, a place without shadow, without suffering, without confusion. At first, this seems like a utopia, doesn't it? A world without pain, without the burdens that weigh us down. But Jung, with his deep psychological insight, saw further. He warned that where there is no shadow, there can be no depth. Without the contrast between light and dark, the soul, he believed, would lose its weight, its grounding, its capacity for true transformation. From my own reflection, this insight is both humbling and confronting. In a society increasingly obsessed with eliminating discomfort and maximizing positivity, Jung reminds us that growth does not occur in sterile perfection. It happens through struggle, through darkness, through embracing the very aspects of life we are often taught to avoid. Jung was reluctant to share this vision publicly. He understood that the world, especially the world of the 1940s, was not ready. And perhaps even today, many are not ready to hear it. So he concealed the experience within symbols, myths, and the language of alchemy, fields he would obsessively study in his later years. Yet in this letter, raw, unfiltered, he poured out the truth, addressed not to the world at large, but to a single unnamed colleague, a seeker who Jung hoped would understand. He spoke of another profound moment during his near-death journey. He was given the opportunity to ask one question. He chose the one that had haunted him his entire life. What is truth? The answer came not in words, but in a vision. He saw a great tree. Its roots plunged deep into darkness, unseen and silent. its crown blazed with fire, reaching up toward the heavens. In this, Jung realized that truth is not the possession of knowledge. It is growth. It is a willingness to descend into the unknown, to endure the darkness, to let suffering shape understanding. Truth, he saw, is light earned, not inherited. This realization profoundly reshaped Jung's inner life. He returned to his body reluctantly. The sterile hospital room, the clinical sounds of doctors and machines all felt alien, almost trivial compared to the vastness he had just glimpsed. Yet Jung did not become a preacher of his experience. He chose instead to encode its wisdom subtly, inviting only those who were ready to find it. Reflecting on this choice, I am struck by Jung's humility. Unlike many who claim spiritual visions and rush to proclaim themselves authorities, Jung chose silence. He honored the sacredness of the experience. He respected that some truths are not for the many, they are invitations, extended only to the willing. But there was one more revelation that Jung recorded, one that adds a sobering dimension to his vision of the beyond. Not everything beyond death was welcoming. There were beings, watchers, guardians who stood at the threshold. They were not malicious, he wrote, but they were firm. He was not allowed to pass further, not until he had fully become who he was meant to be. This detail resonates deeply with me. It suggests that access to deeper realms of existence is not granted by mere curiosity. It is earned through spiritual maturity, through becoming the person your soul is meant to be. And isn't that, in the end, the truest journey of life? Not merely to exist, but to become. After his return, Carl Jung found himself changed in a way that words can barely capture. He no longer viewed life as a linear march from birth to death, but rather as a sacred cycle, becoming one that stretched far beyond a single lifetime. Jung began to see death not as an end, but as a threshold, a necessary and profound passage in the soul's infinite evolution. He wrote, "Death is not the extinguishing of the light. It is the putting out of the lamp because dawn has come." It is important to recognize the weight of that insight. Our fear of death, so often rooted in the clinging to ego and material existence, blinds us to the extraordinary journey our consciousness is undertaking. Jung's experience invites us to contemplate. What if death is not the great destroyer we fear, but rather the great revealer? Jung also reflected deeply on the nature of the soul itself. From his near-death experience, he realized that the soul is not some passive, ghostly remnant. It is an active, evolving force, a dynamic field of being that grows, learns, and transforms across realms we can scarcely imagine. He perceived the soul as existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. What we experience here, joy, suffering, love, despair, is but a single note in the grand symphony of our existence. One profound detail from his letter stood out to me personally. Jung saw that the soul carries within it a blueprint of purpose that transcends the physical life we know, and that blueprint is unique to each individual. This leads to a stunning realization. Your soul's purpose is not about achieving success in the worldly sense. It is not about accumulating wealth, fame, or even knowledge. It is about actualizing the deepest, truest version of yourself in ways often invisible to the world, but radiant in the unseen realms. However, Jung also issued a powerful caution. When a soul betrays its own growth, when it clings to falsehoods, to illusions, to unearned certainties, it becomes stagnant. In the vision, such souls appear not as luminous beings, but as shadowed forms, drifting aimlessly, still caught in illusions even beyond death. This teaching is sobering. It reminds me that life is not merely a stage for external accomplishment. It is a forge, a sacred crucible in which the raw material of our being is shaped into something greater. Ignoring that process does not halt it. It merely delays our evolution, perhaps for lifetimes. Jung's letter then touches on something even more radical: the role of love in the afterlife. He saw that love, true, unconditional love, is a currency of the soul. It is the only substance that persists across the boundary of death. Everything else, ambition, fear, status, possessions, dissolves into irrelevance. Only love, the genuine connection between beings, remains as real, tangible, and transformative. From a personal viewpoint, I find this truth simultaneously inspiring and deeply challenging. We often speak of love in sentimental terms, but Jung's experience demands something far more. Love not as emotion, but as a force of being, a way of existing that reshapes reality itself. If love truly is the architecture of the soul's journey, then every act of compassion, forgiveness, and courage becomes not just morally good, it becomes cosmically significant. Finally, Jung glimpsed one last mystery, that even beyond death, the journey does not end. The soul moves through stages, realms, and dimensions, each more astonishing than the last. Existence, he realized, is infinite becoming, and the soul's destiny is to unfold itself endlessly, forever growing closer to the source from which it came. He left us with a powerful metaphor. Life is a school, death is a graduation. But even then, higher schools await. Greater lessons unfold. Ever onward, ever inward, ever upward. Reflecting on Jung's hidden letter, I am left with several enduring lessons. Life is preparation, not conclusion. Everything we endure, every choice we make, is shaping something that will outlast the flesh. Truth is earned through descent and ascent. Only by facing the unknown within ourselves can we awaken to the deeper realities. Love is not a mere feeling. It is the soul's eternal signature. In every lifetime, in every realm, love is what we carry forward. Becoming is endless. There is no final arrival, only deeper participation in the unfolding mystery of existence. As I contemplate Jung's experience, I am filled with both awe and responsibility. If his vision holds any truth, and I believe it does, then we are all engaged in a far grander journey than we often realize. Every moment matters. Every inner choice shapes eternity. We are not simply surviving life. We are sculpting the destiny of our very souls. Jung's hidden letter is not just a report from beyond. It is a call to live more consciously, more courageously, and more lovingly right here, right now. For it is not death that waits for us. It is a greater life than we can yet comprehend. If you found this exploration meaningful, consider subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the mysteries of consciousness, psychology, and the human soul. Let's continue this journey together. Share your thoughts in the comments. How does Jung's vision resonate with your own experience of life and beyond?